Hello, everyone. This is Timothy Zritsky. Welcome to another episode of The True Breakthrough. Today, I'm joined by a very special guest, Pavel Bosovik. He's not only a special guest, he's also a mentor, and he's had incredible success in a lot of areas of life. I'm really grateful to have him here, learn about his story and what his vision is.
Yeah, thank you for having me here.
So, you've been able to achieve, like, let's say, even in this past 4 years, growing from 0 to 50 million,
Yeah.
27 North. You've achieved what most people, 99% of people will never achieve. Why do you keep going? Why are you still waking up going 110% every day?
Yeah. Well, my initial goal was to build a $53 million enterprise. And the reason I set 53 million is my father-in-law was really worried about me losing my virtues in life and going down the wrong path of what unfortunately too many business owners do, especially ones that start in the faith but steer away from God. And so I told him, the day I hit 53 million, I'll cash out, I'll give you 1%, and we'll go start a missionary together. Well, fast forward, I think it was last year, early last year, we blew right through that. Um, and set a moment in our life where like, what do we do now?
Mm,
And my father-in-law wasn't ready to retire, neither was I. And we started praying about it, and we just really felt like God was calling us to make a bigger impact. And when I finally realized that, hey, this business isn't just about building quality RVs and shaping the way people enjoy their retirement, but we're impacting employees, vendors, bankers. Like, we're able to donate so much and help families around the world. I'm like, wow, this is my mission. And so that's when the new vision was born of building $1 billion enterprise, and the journey we're on now is a greater calling to make a global impact on society.
I love that you said that God was calling me to build a bigger business. And that's not something you hear very often, especially like in the Slavic culture that you
Yeah.
come from. When you were growing up, let's say like a few years back, like when you're
Yeah.
20s, even younger, what were things that happened that instilled that value into you that God is calling you into
Yeah.
business?
I grew up in a very Christian, ultra conservative family. And so from a very young age, those values were instilled into us. And it's something that I took for granted at one season of my life when I was probably from 19 to 21. But whenever I had a come to Jesus moment, 22-ish years old, I realized that everything my parents were teaching me was actually the right and the good thing to do. And I'm super grateful for my parents, super grateful for God allowing me to really experience what I've experienced in my life. And it was put in from a young age.
Mm.
Um, fifth grade, we were already, reading the Bible and writing down Bible verses. Um, being the person that's apologized. So anytime if we got into a disagreement with our siblings, we weren't just forced to apologize. My dad made us shake hands and hug each other and begin to shape, I almost feel like genetically, the leader that I am today. And so today, if I have to ask forgiveness, even when I'm wrong, it's not a big deal for me. I can just go and ask
Mhm.
forgiveness. One time, my attorney was like, Pavel, you did nothing wrong in this situation, but this person just wants an apology from you. Can you do that? I'm like, of course, I don't mind. Like, it was instilled from a
Yeah,
young age. So, yes, you're very right. It was put inside of me by my parents from a very young age.
that reminds me of when I was a little kid. There were times like you mistreated someone else, and I remember my parents uh, making me go in front of adults or other kids and apologizing. And I remember those days like they were yesterday, but
Yes.
I feel like those were some of the biggest times where you like get transformed in your
Oh, yeah.
character.
Most definitely.
Were there any things so, like, I don't know about you, but a lot of people I know, they struggle to bring together the idea of ultra successful business and being spiritually minded. It's almost like you ask someone, "How do you do both?" and they just laugh at you, or they're
Yeah.
like, "Oh, you're silly. That's
Yeah.
not possible." What gave you the confidence to actually know that that's possible?
I don't know. I just know I have it. The last person that I really uh broke this apart and talked to about was my dad. He's a strong spiritual figure in my life, and he shared with me this Bible verse that said, um, "It's God given to us." And I can't take credit for a single moment of it.
Mm,
Having an amazing faith centered team helps. Having amazing faith-centered business owners in my life helps, but end of the day, all of that just attributes to it, but the core of it, it's literally inscribed inside of me that God and Christ is the center of everything I do, and I have to do things right, and even if it takes me longer, and even if I have to be the person that takes the higher road, I have to do what I got to do because it's for God. So yeah, I don't have a specific answer for that other than it's something that was instilled within me.
What if one of the things you talk about a lot is having a strong inner circle? In fact, like if you don't have that strong inner circle of people you can draw influence from, that you just will not be able to succeed in any area
Yeah.
of your life. What were some steps you took leading up to the moment where you had that explosive growth
Yeah.
of?
I hung out with a bunch of losers and I became the biggest loser of them all. And I was literally one night listening to, and I highly recommend it. It's Coach Speaks About Mother on YouTube. It's a super popular video where a coach is talking to a bunch of high schoolers or middle schoolers about his mom. And he said that quote, if you hang out with a bunch of losers, you'll become the biggest loser of them all. And I'm just like, when he said that, I'm looking at the screen at YouTube, and I feel like I'm looking in a mirror, and I see myself in the letters "Biggest Loser," and I'm like, "Something's got to change."
Mhm,
And I just remember the words that my father always told me growing up that if you hang out with people that are a negative influence, that you're sooner or later going to become like them. And I realized I got to take those steps. So I began studying this. You know, what is an inner circle? What is a tribe? What does the Bible say about it? What do people say about it? And I finally came to this conclusion. I was in the middle of a social psychology course I took in college, and we were studying the impacts your social circle has on you over the span of 30 years.
mhm,
And the professor said within 99% accuracy, she can tell us where we will be in 30 years, what clothing we're gonna wear, what houses we're gonna live in, what class and society we're gonna be in based on social circles. And I sat down and I literally on a piece of paper sketched out my life, what I do
yeah,
with all my members of the inner circle today. And I sketched it out and I'm like, wow, 30 years from now, I'm gonna be a loser still. I have to change. And so right there, it was junior, senior year of college. I started strategically looking for people in my life that I wanted to be like.
yeah,
So in college, I wanted to be really smart. I wanted to improve the way I talk. And I found that all my peers were same level as me, and I found nothing impressive. So I literally went to the library and I went to the quiet, weird kid area, and I found a bunch of PhD students. And they were these little cubicles, and each PhD student had their own cubicle to write their thesis on.
mhm,
And I started going to these cubicles and meeting PhD students, and I realized, wow, they live in the library. They talk differently. They think differently. And I self-invited myself to one of their dinners. And I come in, and we're all sitting on the couches, college students,
yeah,
PhD students, and they're talking about world politics and how this impacts this and this economy is going to impact this. And meeting after meeting that I'm with them, I'm like, everything they're saying is right. And then I learned this is the son of this prime minister, and this is the daughter of this super successful billionaire. And I'm like, whoa. Within 3 months, not only did I not recognize myself, the
mm,
people around me didn't recognize me. My siblings started telling me, "Like, Pablo, you're talking differently. You're thinking differently." I'm sitting with my dad where before we would dispute about, biblical things that, Slavic people typically dispute about, to now we're
mm,
talking about world politics and how this leader within this country is going to impact our economy. And it's like, wow,
yeah.
while I was in college. And that was my first step in realizing the power of inner circle. And I've just built on that ever since.
That's incredible because the proximity, the power that
Yeah.
brings,
Yeah.
it influences you. And I was realizing that when we were talking about that 30-year timeline,
Yeah.
how you can work and try every day as hard as you can to be better, to be different, to succeed.
Right.
But if you're surrounded by the wrong people, you're just kind of like running into a brick wall.
Exactly.
When you were going through that journey, let's say 4 years back, like
Yeah.
right before things really started to take off in your new journey, what were some mindset shifts you had to change to think differently to be able to prepare yourself for something like that?
Yeah. I love that question. And my simple answer to that is all of it, everything. I literally had to break myself and the way that I thought and looked at business when I started. And what made me realize that is when I made the decision to start my business, I went and I connected with successful business owners that I wanted to be like. And I went and I into their shops, into their service centers, met, talked to them. And when I heard all their feedback, I realized, wow, I know little to nothing about a business and how to start and how to run it. And I need to change the way I think about everything.
Mhm.
I've now done that probably every 2 years, I go through that. I call it a glass ceiling. So the moment I realize that I feel like I'm stuck, I say breaking ceiling. So I break my ceiling by introducing into my life new individuals that are at the level that I want to be at. And so I break my ceiling, I break the way I think, I break the way I look at life, at business, at relationships, and even my faith. And so, yeah, it's constantly leveling up, constantly breaking those ceilings that um, kind of invisible ceilings in our life that hold us down from further growing.
That reminds me, I remember telling one of my friends how it might sound funny, but being outside of your comfort zone is the comfort zone.
Exactly.
And if you're within your comfort zone, that's when you should be feeling uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are, as you've gone on this journey, there's been a lot of growth. What are some things that, like, what's the most misunderstood thing about you that people bring up to you?
I don't know where along the journey, but I think in part it's probably because I got a PR team too late in my life. And so I was constantly posting my wins and my celebrations. And so, my wife and I, we worked super hard for an entire year and we didn't post about it early on. We didn't post about the 7 days a week. We didn't post about Sunday morning waking up, going to work, from work, going to church, after church, getting a quick lunch, and then going back to the job site. We didn't post about all that. And then out of nowhere, we start posting us on a 1 week trip in Mexico where we got a yacht, rented a yacht, where we do all these bougie cool stuff where they serve you the food. We had a 1 week experience of our lifetime that I'm yet to experience since all in 1 week.
Yeah.
And what do? We post about it. And so ever since then, I feel like people think that I'm some trust fund kid, and it's kind of a misinterpretation of what I do. And so what I like to say in podcasts and any chance that I get is my fun lifestyle that you guys see is less than 1% of my life. 99% is working, grinding, investing, mentoring in the church, in the ministry, and less than 1% of my time is actually traveling and having fun.
So when you're like you're working hard and you're looking to achieve these big goals,
Yeah.
you already achieved the lifestyle. Like if you really wanted to, you could buy yourself anything you want.
Yeah.
What is your bigger vision? Because if you go from 50 million to $1 billion, it's not going to change maybe your personal life too much. But what is that bigger vision that you are
Yeah.
looking for?
So global impact. And what I mean by global impact is whenever we got our $53 million valuation about a year-ish ago, maybe more now, I realized like, wow, yes, I can retire myself, maybe my parents, but what about my in-laws? What about my nieces and nephews? What about the orphanage campus that I want to build in Africa? What about the impact and ministries I want to have across Europe and Ukraine? What about Mexico? We took a trip before we got married, my wife to Mexico on a missionary trip and saw the need there. And I just had this realization, like, for me to cash out this early on just to achieve my personal goals is so selfish of me.
Yeah.
In addition to that, I've already achieved everything I want. I wanted a car, I got it. My wife wanted a Tesla, she got it. We wanted a house, we got it. We're living the American dream. We have a decent house, we have reliable transportation, we can eat out, we have savings. Like we're living a comfortable American dream lifestyle. What more do we need? And so as we continue to radically grow our company, our expenses pretty much stay the same because for us it's a greater calling. And I like to say in passing by, especially at conferences, hey, what's your why? I always say to retire my mother-in-law.
What about beyond that? Because global impact, like that's your inner
Yeah,
circle, it's your close by family. Like, what is your biggest, like, if you were to look at your biggest dream ever, your biggest goal that
yeah.
it's almost scary to say out loud, like, what is something that you really want to achieve?
My biggest vision and goal in life is, in addition to building, or the reason to build a multi-billion-dollar organization, is I want to build a campus on every continent, so 7 campuses around the world that focuses on helping orphans from start to forever. Is the vision that I have for that. Meaning, traditionally orphanages they age out children at 18. For example, here in Missouri, I think the last statistic I heard, only 33% actually turn out to be good kids, college, start their own lives, but over 67% fall back into the system, into drugs and alcohol. So my vision is similar to the vision that I have for 27 North, where we serve our clients from start to forever. So I always
Mm,
tell my clients, 5 years down the road, you have issues, I want to be the first person you call. I don't want you to have to go on Google and YouTube and try to figure out on your own. I'm here forever for you. So
mhm.
same thing for these campuses that we want to build, is start to forever. So At 18, they have one of two decisions. They either go into the business world, start a family, and so forth, and we'll help them get a strategic job anywhere in the world. I have a pretty massive reach around the world to help them place into a nice job, help them start a family, help them get tied into a church, all the way to retirement, have retirement areas within these campuses where they can come back to any one of the seven campuses anywhere in the world and continue to serve the next generation. So a continuous flywheel. Or option number two, they go to college and we place them in an Ivy League college. We get them scholarships. We go with them through college and then either start their own business if they want to start their own business. Same thing, have a fund where they start their own business. And so this campus would include, a chapel, a clinic, a dormitory, a working center, a gymnasium, almost like a mini city. And what inspired me to do that is I once met a friend of David Wilkerson, Jonathan, out of South Africa, and he told me about the campus him and David Wilkerson built there in South Africa. And it was just so inspiring to me that they had an entire campus, but one component that I saw that was missing was it didn't go forever
Hmm.
when you can still age out of this campus. And so I wanted something that provided that care. So from the moment you come into this system, into this campus, you will have support financially, relationship wise, all the way to the end. So all the way until your old age, we will take care of you. We'll have you plugged into a strong community internationally around the world.
What has been your biggest challenge? Like, as you've been growing your business and even beyond like today, like what is your biggest not setback, but what's holding you back the most right now that you see?
Something that I would say is holding me back the most. I say it all the time. The reason I'm not a billionaire yet is because of people. It's people. Um, Trying to find the high performers, the high quality people. I have a couple of top employees. Well, I should say a lot of top employees, but one example I like to make is Mike. Mike is my VP of operations. And I always say, if God was to send me 1,000 Mikes, I'd be a billionaire.
Mm.
So it takes approximately, depending on the industry, but on average, from my research, my personal research, I found that you need 1,000 good, high performing employees to build or have $1 billion organization. And so I would say the only obstacle I have is people.
When I was talking with you, these few questions would always come up in my mind and other people's mind. Um, you're having all these big goals, right? $1 billion, and I'm sure you've heard this criticism too. Oh, you're being selfish. You're just thinking about money.
Yeah.
And I know you've shared your vision, but how have you overcome those like inner doubts of, am I really doing this for money? Am I just hiding behind this vision of campuses for the sake of money? How do you deal with those issues?
Yeah. So I'm pretty introvert deep down within my inner self. And a downside or a negative thing about being an introvert is ultra sensitive. And whenever someone says something negative to me or my family or my church or my faith, I take it really personally. And to this day is why I rarely get a part of any legal disputes or miscommunications. I let my team and attorney always handle it because I just always take it really personally. And it's hard for me to overcome it. And it gives me like bad thoughts and negative vibes. So I try to avoid it as far. I can't handle drama.
Mm,
And I've tried to become that ruthless person that I need to be, and I realized, why would I change myself based on the few negative circumstances I have in life? That's why I got
mhm.
people in my life for. I got a
Yeah.
couple amazing former vets that, are very good at negotiating and talking and resolving problems. So why would I burden myself with that when there's people that thrive and are almost, I feel like, God-given talents in regards to conflict resolution?
Mm,
So to answer your question, I was once called into a meeting. I was a part of a Slavic organization, we'll put it that way. And the leader of the organization took me into a meeting after one of the meetings, and he's like, "Hey, there's so many people talking negative about you, and it's causing conflict in our organization." And I'm like, "Whoa, like I'm trying so hard. I go above and beyond. The few times someone said that I upset them, I would go get a bouquet of flowers and a gift card. So my thing was bouquet of flowers and gift card. Then I'd go and I'd apologize. And many times I'd say, "You didn't offend us. I mean, that's just a rumor. We didn't take it personally. We knew you wouldn't do that." And so I was like, all right, I got to figure out what's going on. So I asked the leadership to help me make a list. So we formulated a list. I think there was like 16 or 17 names that they could provide of people that had something against me, that had some negative thoughts or negative things to say about me. So I took that list and I divided it by how many members are in this organization. And it came out to be 6%.
Mhm.
So I'm sitting there and I'm like, I'm over here overthinking it, wasting my time, wasting my resources because 6% of one organization don't like me.
Mhm.
My Bible says, like, woe unto you if they say good things and praise about you, but blessed are you when they say all sorts of evil against you.
Mhm.
So that's just one example. And whenever I realized, like, wow, this is just a minority. Like, even if it was 10%. My team recently did a survey on my social media platforms, and they realized that it's less than, I think it was 2 or 3% of quote unquote haters. So now, why would I tailor or change my life
Mhm.
to accommodate such a small number of my following or people in my life? And so that moment there was a life changing experience where I realized, all right, I'm just going to completely ignore them and I'm gonna take the bulk of people. So in that situation, it was the 94%. In my regression, my following, it's 98%. What does the 98% of my following like? Enjoy. What does it inspire them? And so the last survey that we did was in the form of a poll. And they posted, do you guys like when Pavel posts personal stuff, inspirational stuff, stuff about his faith, stuff about his work, or a little bit of everything?
Yeah.
98% said a little bit of everything. So now if you look at any of my social media platforms, it's a little bit of everything. I talk a little bit about faith, I talk a little bit about that, a little bit about that. So if I could inspire anyone
Mm.
with anything is find out who are those negative people. I think they're called Karens or Nancys of your life. And just if you need to block and delete them, just remove them from your life and find out who is your ideal person
Mm.
that you're trying to influence or impact. First and foremost, is God that we're trying to glorify, but through our work, through our
Yeah.
ministry, who are we trying to serve? And tailor your approach. Um, Develop yourself for those people that you feel like you're called to serve, whether it's in the ministry or in your business.
What about, like, if it's on social media, that's one thing, but if it's people that are closest to you that are not aligning with,
Block them.
even if they're the closest as possible.
I've blocked my mother before. A true story. So I was about to get I think it was a $7 or $8 million loan. Interest rates were through the roof. My mom started just being really negative, pulling me back. And I was just like, I got to a point like, Mom, I love you, but it's having a negative impact on me. You're my mother. I am a byproduct of your love and labor, quite literally. And I just can't do this anymore. I'm sorry. I'm going to block you. If you need anything, you can go through my EA.
Mhm.
I can't remember if it was a month or 3 months, a short period later, she comes into my office with a bouquet of flowers, hugging me, crying, I'm crying, we're hugging it out. She's like, "I'm so sorry for doing that. I promise now not to do it again." And from that day forward, for the last 2 plus years, she's been
Mhm.
my biggest supporter. Sometimes I'm like Marvel, like sometimes I I love my wife, but I feel like she's now like texting me more than my wife. "You got this. I'm praying for you." 3 days go by. "Why have you texted me? Is everything okay?" I'm like, "Mom, everything's fine." She's like, "Don't give up. Keep going, keep going."
That's awesome.
So I if you look at my phone, I have probably now I would say upwards of 1,000 people blocked.
Mhm.
And I would say probably roughly 100 of that is people that I'm probably related to.
It makes me think of that principle where, Jesus said, "If you're ashamed of me before men,
Boom.
then, I will be ashamed of you before the Father." And so many
Yeah.
times we let that 1%, those few people, stop us from our God-given or God calling,
Yeah.
plans
Yeah.
and things that we need to be doing, those good works He prepared for us to do,
Yeah.
because we're afraid and we're ashamed of these 2, 3
Yeah.
people.
Occasionally the Karens in my life will say, "Oh, Paul, that's so radical." It's like, really? Are you a Christian? Yes. Do you believe in Jesus Christ? Yes. What did Jesus say when his own mother and siblings came to him in the middle of a conference
Mm.
and wanted to see him? Did he show personal bias and say, "Hey, let's clear the stage. Let's let them come sit up front, VIP tickets, let them through"? No, he said, "These are my brothers and my sisters and my mothers, the people fulfilling my will." So I believe Jesus was probably even more radical than all of us put together. My experience is, if they're having a point, you've come to a point where it's starting to negatively impact you, you got to block them. You got to put distance between yourself and them, whether it's your mother, whether it's a brother, a sister, a cousin, a neighbor, whoever it is. What is more important? Making them happy by sacrificing your future
Mhm.
or your future and your family's futures.
How do you like the Bible says like to have a lot of wise counsel and not to just be surrounded by people that tell you what you want to hear. How do you distinguish between I'm doing this because it's negative versus it's advice that I just don't want to hear?
Yeah, so I'm constantly leveling up my what I call my inner circle. And so if you study social psychology, there's three, some people say four levels of circles, social circles that impact us. The outermost layer is people that we rarely see, a doctor, a teacher, a police officer that pulls us over. That's our outermost circle. The person checking us out at the grocery store, the person that cuts us, that's our outermost circle. Zooming into our innermost circles, the people we spend the most time with that actually truly shape us uh, the most in our lives. So every year I just add a new standard. So this year I added or changed a new standard. And my number one standard now of the seven standards I have for people that shape me is a devout Christian is number one. Then number two is a family man and never been divorced. Number three, which increased this year, 250 million a year revenue, whether it's a investment portfolio or a business. Number four, positive influence. And by positive influence is what's going to answer your question is not telling me what I want to hear necessarily, but
Mhm.
telling me how I can reach the levels that they're at. And so if someone is going to have all these features, but only tell me what I want to hear, oh, Paul, you're doing so good and pat me on the back. I'm like, seriously, like, I have an amazing wife and I have an amazing team and amazing clients. They tell me that all the time. I'm friends with you for you to make me a better person. And if you can't make me a better person, I'm sorry, we can still see each other, hang out at a conference or something, but my life is short. It's gonna fly by like this. I need people in my life that will shape me into the individual that I want to be.
So it really just comes down to you're compressing your time frame of if I can learn what this man took to learn his whole lifetime in a couple months of time, you can kind of keep leveling up, leveling up.
Exactly. I love making the legal examples because too many times people don't understand the legal troubles. And I don't want to make it sound like I have a lot. I think I only had like three or five last year when a lot of companies our size have 15 plus. I once met a billionaire just a couple of months ago. He said he's got 20 to 30 litigations a month. And so, um, given the example of someone who lacks that. So I know an individual twice as old as me, my level of success, year 3 of fighting someone in court. And I'm like, "Dude, just look at the time, energy, and money you wasted."
Yeah.
Versus in my life, I have people that are, 10, 20 times more successful than him telling me, "Paul, never go to court." It's like, court is for weak people with high egos. And one of the individuals, he's ultra successful. He always told me, "Paul, in my 50 plus years, I've never once seen the inside of a courtroom."
Hmm.
He's like, "There's nothing you can't handle as grown up adults in negotiations, mitigation, arbitration, whatever it is." He's like, "At the end of the day, even if it's not your fault, just apologize." And that's my motto now. So imagine that he wastes 3 years of his life every time he's got a legal dispute. For me, I haven't had one go outside a couple of weeks. I love apologizing, even if it's not my fault. I always call this the best investment. It's the biggest cost savings we have. And so for me, in my mind, an apology is a cost saving and it's the right thing to do before God.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's just a few small examples of the power you have whenever you have a strong inner circle.
So I wanted to shift it a little bit.
Yeah.
So you've gone through this journey, you've learned a lot. And for the people that are listening, I want to give them the opportunity to, let's say they've never talked to someone at your level of what you've achieved or anything for that matter. And they're in that sphere of people that are they're not supporting them, they're being negative around them.
Yeah.
They don't even know what's out there. What would be your advice to that kind of person to kind of get started on this journey of living the life to their fullest for God's glory?
Yeah. I couple of answers there. First, I'm still learning. I still occasionally, when I meet like a high performer, like I'm supposed to meet Donald Trump in the near future, I still my hands start sweating and kind of shaky because I'm an introvert deep inside. But it's a continuous battle of overcoming it. And what helped me really come outside of that is I watched a documentary on Tony Robbins and how he overcomes his excitement and how he controls everything and how he comes on stage, and it all starts with just starting. And so the best way to take that first step in building your network is
Mhm.
we're in the time of the internet. Start virtually and just start learning how to attract different pitches. Early on, when I was just starting my network 5 years ago, every evening before I went to sleep, I set a goal to send out 20 cold DMs.
Mhm.
20 cold DMs. And I would tailor each one and I would see what works, what doesn't work. And over the last 5 years, I can now, anyone, anywhere, anytime, any mood, I can come in, match their level of energy, and have the strongest relationship ever. I love whenever traveling with my wife, I'll say, "Hey, challenge me." And she'll pick a random person and I'll come up and within 5 minutes, we're like best friends.
Hmm.
So you just gotta start and then give yourself 5 years, 10 years, give yourself Tony Robbins, give yourself a lifetime. He's about to have a conference, a virtual conference, and he says, "I'm gonna teach you 43 years of learning." And then in a podcast, when he's promoting, he's like, "But I'm still learning." And so for me, it's 5 years. For him, it's 43 years. Your clock, your timer, your experience starts the day you start. So the sooner you start, the sooner you'll be able to build on that. So an easy first step, go on social media and just start cold DMing people.
I saw on your desk you have those acorns, that
Yes,
symbol of putting those seeds in and just not expecting a return for 7 years.
exactly. It takes 7 years to build something that will last a century.
For those, I mean, they're gonna experience setbacks and failure. How do you kind of bounce back from those setbacks, whether it's people that you were discouraged in or just things that didn't go your way? How do you bounce back
Yeah.
quickly and get back into the groove?
Yeah. So if you look at my office, I have a really big glass acorn.
Mhm.
I have 3 acorns on my desk, and then behind my desk, I have an entire glass bowl of real acorns that have been sealed with wax to prevent them from rotting. And I'm always planting, sowing so much that even if half of them don't work, I'm so preoccupied with the few that are working that I'm not allowed, or I don't allow myself to be distracted or disappointed. A famous quote that my brother Peter always told me from a young age is, "Don't put all your eggs into one basket." And so, if all I had was this one big glass acorn that represents in my life 27 North, and it was to break and shatter, that'd be hard.
Yeah,
I think it'd be hard even right now where I am, but I have so many of them. Even if 10% of these acorns that I'm planting and sowing, it'll be a forest. It'll be a forest in my life. I love giving the example of Amazon.
yeah.
Thousands of failure per year. And Jeff Bezos says 1 or 2 only need to succeed for them to cover the losses and generate, and I quote, "stupid money."
As we kind of wrap up and close, I had two more questions. What is the biggest accomplishment so far that you're most proud of in everything that you've done?
Oh, that's a good one because just oh, God has just blessed me so much, and I'm very proud of everything God has given me in my life. I would say my biggest one would be the impact my work has had on other people's life. There's times when I feel a little discouraged and I ask the question of, why? Why did I do it? Was it worth it? And it's amazing around the time when I ask the why question or the why statement, I marvel of how God works. I will out of nowhere get a DM or an email or a text or someone randomly show up in the office just to tell me thank you, and they'll say, "Thank you. Your posts, your lifestyle has shaped me in my life and
Yeah.
has changed the trajectory of my life." And for me, seeing that, I don't know what the number is out there. And I always tell myself, even if it's for one person, it's worth it.
Yeah.
But that's probably the one thing I'm most proud of is the impact my work is having on other people's life.
I would kind of tie into the next question because, I mean, a lot of people say, yeah, if I had just impacted one person in my life, that would suffice. But if you were to fast forward, Lord willing, in many years
Yeah,
on your deathbed, you look back, what would you hope to have accomplished? What would you hope to be that impact that you would have had long term in your whole life?
yeah. Multi-generational impact. So not only seeing my legacy continue in my family, so kids, grandkids, great grandkids, great grandkids, but also the people that were part of my life,
Hmm.
employees, clients, vendors, bankers. relatives, friends, and I mean, even people that see my post occasionally and engage, and anyone and everyone that has any contact with me in my life, that it's had a generational impact on them.
Yeah.
It's all amazing and nice for it to impact and change your life. But I feel like it's not really reaching its fullest potential like that acorn. It's like, yeah, it's nice that the oak tree grew,
Yeah.
but if the soil went dry and the owner stopped caring for it and that oak tree dried up and started rotting and it didn't last more than one
The one generation.
generation, was it really worth it?
Mhm.
Some might argue, and we're getting into philosophy here. Yes, it was worth it. Yes, it did. It served its purpose. Yes, someone once told me, "Well, chop it up and use it for firewood, and it was worth it." But for some reason, I really think God instilled within me
Mhm.
that whenever a man or woman, family, a business, anything finds favor before God, His blessings continue for how many generations? 1,000. 1,000 generation. I think that's where the song 1,000 years comes from, I think.
Mhm.
But anyways, 1,000 generations. And so for me is, if the work that I accomplish in this life, similar to anyone from the woman that, remember the woman that washed the feet of Jesus and
Yeah.
wiped it with her hair? And it said anywhere that this scripture is going to be read about, it's going to be talked about. And it doesn't even say her name.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm fine my name, my last name being excluded from all of it.
Yeah.
But so long as that impact continues from generation to generation to generation, I almost feel like I'll be a letdown. My great grandfather, he was in communist held prison for 16 years of his life. My grandfather, pastor for 40 years, persecuted all of it. My dad, lightly persecuted, sacrificed so much. Me, I sacrificed health, vacations, trips, relationships, friends. It's like this. I'm fourth generation of sacrificing so much,
Yeah.
and for me to do something that won't allow that to continue for thousands and more generations,
Just retire.
yeah, the pressure's so high. The pressure is so real. So if my great grandfather didn't quit after 16 years of, and this is not a regular prison, this is a communist held prison. I mean, this is intense.
Yeah.
My grandfather, 40 years and into his old age, was a pastor and he continued. My dad, 70 years old, still grinding, still working. Who am I to give up? Who am I to
Mhm.
retire? Who am I to give up? Who's going to continue this bloodline, this blessings for thousands of generations to come?
Yeah.
So that's probably at my deathbed, if I can say and do what my ancestors said and did, and of course being able to uh, meet Christ and get
Yeah.
into the kingdom of life is probably in the forefront. But to be able to end of my life say, hey, I've run the race,
Mhm.
I've kept the faith, and my next 3, 4, 5,000 generations are going to continue
Yeah.
what I have continued from my ancestors.
And I don't know, like, how most people were when they were growing up, but where I come from, it almost felt foreign to a Christian to think this way and to think big and to have these successful ventures. But when you look at Christ in the Garden of Gethsemane, everyone's left him. He's all alone. And you would think that that mission that Christ came to accomplish, it's over. Like, how can you have a global impact when everyone's left you, you're all alone? But through God's power, look at what Christ achieved. And I don't understand what these words mean, but Jesus said that you will go and do greater things.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know what that means for people's lives, but I think at the very least, it's our responsibility to wake up every day, give more than 100% of our
Yeah.
life, lay our life down in the way of not just sitting there and hoping that something happens to
Yeah.
us, but going out there seeking God and excellence in every area of our life.
Yeah. It's interesting that you highlight that because um, in the United States, there's still a good portion of society that suffers from the kind of coal mine era. Industrial revolution really helped us progress, but I still see a lot of symptoms from the coal mine era. For us Slavic people, it's the Soviet Union era of living paycheck to paycheck, not saving, um, very non-hospitable, so a lot more hostile,
Mm.
don't smile, like really serious. And in that time and era, that was kind of what was needed.
Mhm.
You didn't have the opportunities we have today and right now. But something that resonates really well with me was The words of my mother that I believe came from my great grandfather was when he was in that prison cell and he had a revelation that there will come a day where his grandchildren will be able to worship and glorify God with windows and doors open. Well, whenever we heard that, we as kids were kinda confused, like, "What does that mean?" And my mom would say, like, "At that time, you weren't allowed to gather and to have church services,
Mhm.
so the doors and windows were closed." And I remember my grandma saying she would, as a girl, stuff pillows in the windows and put blankets in the door jambs so neighbors can't hear them praying and worshiping God. And now look at the time and age we're living at.
Yeah.
You can go and worship and glorify on the streets. I openly posted on my social media, and every month over 1 million people get to see it and hear it around the world. Similar in the business. If you dive deep into scripture, there's so much that is written and covered about it
Yeah.
that they didn't necessarily have in their time and age, but it doesn't mean we have to restrain ourselves and not have those blessings and opportunities. And I think it lacks financial literacy, lacks to, I think, the highest levels within the church today.
Mhm.
Why is there no financial education within the church?
Yeah.
Why is there no courses and classes on health within the church today? And these are pillars. So we're not allowed to teach about healthy eating habits. Don't drink Coca Cola. On the contrary, we're having a pizza party here, youth, here, old people, here's Coca Cola. And then they have all of these problems of diabetes and blood pressure. And it's like, young people like, "Oh, why don't you go pray for a miracle?" It's like, you don't need a miracle. You just need to study and learn what to not to drink. And it marvels me. Like, why are we not allowed to openly speak up about these things?
Mhm.
Same thing with financial need. Like a basic thing like a budget. I'm not saying every Sunday on the pulpit, let's talk about money and health,
Mhm.
but how can you be a strong servant of God if you're obese, financially illiterate, living paycheck to paycheck, and having to be an over the road truck driver away from your family for 3 weeks at a time? And so I've came to the conclusion of saying there's a large amount of people today that are just deceived
Mm.
because there's no reason living in the time and age that we're living today with basic financial literacy and basic just health education, um, that you can't live a happy life.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you're gonna have millions of dollars, but you're certainly not going to be living paycheck to paycheck. You're certainly not going to have the health problems that a lot of people have today,
Mhm.
just changing your healthy eating habits. And
Yeah.
I always like to circle back to the scriptures. I challenge listeners today to go in the Bible, and since we're talking about health and money right now, so wealth and health, count how many times Jesus speaks about money and health. Once you count how many they are and you're like, wow, this is extraordinary. It's a lot. Write down. This is an advice an elderly pastor gave to me when I asked him this question about the Bible. He's like, once you count how many verses there are in the New Testament, let's not even touch the Old Testament right now. It's just as important, but just the New Testament. Write out every Bible verse. Today, you can chat GPT type it up, but I encourage you to write it down because when you're writing it, it's inscribed in the tablets of your heart. So write down every Bible verse where it talks about wealth and health. Jesus talks about wealth and health. And then just sit there, and at that point, I don't think I need to tell or teach you or anyone needs to convince you. You will have one of the greatest revelations of modern day society that you've probably ever experienced. And not only that, you will change the trajectory of your entire bloodline moving forward.
That's incredible. What would you there's millions, we talked about this earlier, millions of people right now, Slavic people
Yeah.
that are in this position where they don't fit in with their past traditions. They don't fit in with, let's say, typical American
Mm.
culture, and they're talented people, they're capable people, and they just feel like they have no, they're just out of place, and that obviously impacts their impact on the world.
Yeah.
What would you say to inspire them to make a difference in this world, not to just settle for anything, but really go out and change the
Yeah.
world?
A world famous pastor once gave me this answer when I asked him, and he said, Pavel, I once sat in the front row with these elderly Slavic legends per se. And I played my life through 30 years. And I realized in 30 years, I'm going to be like them sitting in the front row of this church, arguing and disputing things that Christ has already resolved. He's like, I don't want to be that person. And he went and he started his own church and has had a global impact as well.
Mm,
Missionaries all around the world, 70 members of the church on full-time salary, half of them missionaries, and it's just an extraordinary story. And I sat there, I'm like, wow, I'm gonna do that. So I sat down and I played my life out 30 years. And when I did it, I felt so disgusted, so disappointed that me too, in my old age, I'm gonna be sitting in this front row, disputing and arguing. My longest session was 10 hours, disputing, talking about, excuse me. They call it talking about nothing. And I'm like, that's a waste of an entire lifetime.
mhm,
And then what does it do to my kids? The negative psychological impact it's going to have on my children.
mhm.
I'm like, I'm done. I'm out.
Yeah,
And as I've softly mentioned to you, in the early stages of starting my own church.
yeah.
And I think it's super important that if whoever you are, wherever you are, and you're struggling in this transition, these American churches are too radical for you, but the Slavic churches are just, they're too stuck in disputing over nothing and not Christ centered, not serving Christ. There's an amazing opportunity to start your own church.
Mhm,
You don't need a lot. You need to find one dedicated man or woman of God that can be the leader within this. Look at how many home churches have started. Francis Chan, I think
yeah.
his name, grew into an enormous church.
Mhm,
You can still visit and be members there, do your whole communion and everything, but just start gathering at home. Find 2, 3 families that are like mine. Jesus says, where 2 or 3 of you are gathered in my name. So in the name of Jesus, start gathering within your homes. In between your Sunday services, start gathering in your homes
yeah.
and watch this just amplify and grow. So when I say start your own church, I mean quite literally in your home, just start gathering in these meetings. Early on, it can be 2 people, call it a double date to talk about Jesus. And then it'll be 3 and it'll be 5. And you will be surprised that within a year, you guys won't fit into 2 houses and you guys are gonna have to start looking for bigger places to rent. And the birth of a new church has started with like minded people. And now play your life out 30 years. So look at it 30 years. If every month one new family joins, in 30 years, you guys are going to have thousands of members, like minded, and you guys are going to change the course of history. You guys are going to change generations, and you guys are going to glorify God.
And it takes one decision.
One decision. And like I said, you don't have to like figure it all out.
Mhm,
What do you need to start gathering in your home? You, like I said, stay a member, keep visiting, just in between Sunday services, one time a week. I challenge you, one time a week, get a couple of like-minded people, even if it's one other couple,
mhm.
and start meeting in your home and see what God is going to do from that little acorn that is planted in your living room.
It's incredible. Again, I don't remember where this came from, the quote where, someone said that, "I did everything, and then while I slept, God did the rest."
Amen. I mean, there's a famous Bible verse that one individual planted, another watered, but God gave the increase or God gave the growth.
That's incredible. Pavel, I really appreciate your story. It's inspired me, not only in business, but more importantly to take that step of faith of for God's glory, for his sake, following his word and doing what he called us to do, whatever that may be. I really appreciate your genuineness to do that and just being an open book. Like you share the ups, the downs. That's
So
something you don't find often. And I know that there will be, I mean, thousands, you're already reaching millions of people that are going to not just hear it, but I believe that they're going to be impacted in a way where it will impact generations. So God bless you and keep it up.
I appreciate it. It means the world to me. And likewise for you and your family, the ministry, the business that you're a part of. May God's favor continue to pour out on everything that you do and touch.
Thank you guys. And if you guys want to get in touch with Pavel, his website will be below if you want to get part of his mentorship program, his different businesses. We'll make sure to include those at the bottom.
Thank you.
Thank you.